Today we studied Calculus 1. The topic is definite integral. Maybe you can ask yourself a question, how to compute the area of the curve trapezoid? Now we look at the figure, means the area. We have known the given idea. If a rectangular is given corresponding height, Fs equals x. At this time, the rectangular area formula equals base times height. In this figure, corresponding base means b minus a, corresponding height is h. So we have known the corresponding formula. Now, the rectangle idea means rectangle area is approximate to replace the curve trapezoid area. How to replace? So now look at, if we have 5 small rectangles, the corresponding area is approximate to the trapezoid area. If there are 10 small rectangles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 10. At this time, the sum of the areas of the 10 small rectangles is approximate to replace the curved trapezoid area. How to do this idea? So now look at the following idea. If we divide the curved trapezoid into a number of small rectangles, this means the number of small rectangles is infinity. At this time, the rectangle's width gradually reduces. Then how to find the area of A? Now look at the figure. Yes, maybe we have infinity small rectangles. At this time means the number of rectangles is infinity. So now look at the figure. If we divide so many small rectangles, we can get corresponding the area that AI and do the summation of the small rectangles. How to get it? There are the following 4 steps. Look at step 1, means segmentation. Segmentation means the beginning point A equals x0. The ending point B is equal xn. And this time divided x1, x2, and xn minus 1 into the closed interval. So now become this AB closed interval become n intervals. And then how to do? We can get corresponding interval distance. Delta xi equals the right point xi minus the left point xi minus 1. Step 2, how to do? Yes, the approximation. At this time, corresponding the area of the rectangular delta AI is approximate to the area of the rectangular. Look at this. Classical rectangular. Corresponding the base means xi minus xi minus 1 means corresponding our base. Look at the height. Any fixed point cos I is given. We can take the value f cos I means our height. At this time, the area means base times the height. How to do? And then step 3, do the summation. The summation of the area is approximation to the summation f cos I times delta xi. Why not equal? Yes, if the I from 1 to n, if n is enough large, I think the area value is approximate to our real area. So do the step 4, getting the limit. How to get the limit? The limit A equals the limit lambda tend to 0, summation I from 1 to n. If n is enough large, this means lambda equals the maximum value, the interval distances delta xi, delta x2 until delta xn. If lambda tends to 0 at this time n tends to positive infinity, means there are some tendency. If there are some tendency, means the limit exists. It is a real number. The real number is our area of the curve trapezoid. So try to understand the 4 steps. So now look at the concrete definition. If the region A is bounded by y equals fx less than 0, means above the x-axis, and x equals A, x equals B, and y equals 0, bounded by the 4 curves. Some are lines. And how to find the area of A? The area of A is denoted by as I. We have the following idea. Means the definite integral from A to B fx dx is our interval. Interval equals the limit of summation f xi times delta xi. Summation, pay attention to I from 1 to n. Look at the tendency. Lambda tends to 0. Pay attention to the corresponding signs. Look at A. A is called our lower limit because it is low, so means lower limit. How about B? Corresponding upper limit, so means upper limit. Look at fx. Yes, it is a function. In this size means integral function. How about x? It is variable. It is called integral variable. Look at the sum. The sum means integral sum. So try to remember the signs and understand the formula. If we try to find the area of the curve trapezoid, how to change the question into the integral, means definite integral. So now, according to the idea, we will do some examples. Look at example 1. Try to find the area of the region bounded by y equals x squared and x equals 1 and x-axis. How to do? Do you remember the formula definite integral? This means the area of the region. Try to find some value of definite integral. So this means x squared, our integral function. Corresponding lower limit is 0. The upper limit is 1. X is our integral variable. This means the area equals the value of definite integral. So we have the following concrete steps. Let the beginning point x0 equals 0 and the ending point xn equals 1. Divide means delete x1, x2, xn minus 1. So we can get corresponding the figure y equals x squared and x equals 0, x equals 1. Above x-axis means corresponding the region. The region, how to do segmentation, the first step, okay? So we have the corresponding so many small rectangulars. Look at the classical rectangulars. Taking the point xi equals I over n y. Look at the first. The ending point means 0 over n means number 0. This point 1 over n. The last point means n over n. So corresponding in this interval, the point is I over n. So taking xi equals I over n, corresponding delta xi means the distance of the interval equals 1 over n y. Because between 0 and 1, the distance is 1. How many parts? Yes, n parts. So the distance of every interval is 1 over n. N is fixed, okay? N is sometimes some variable. I from 1 to until n. We write cos I equals xi. Cos I means some fixed point into the given interval. You can select left point or right point or any point between the endpoints. So now we're taking cos I equals right point xi. I from 1 to until n. And then we have the sum integral. We have summation I from 1 to n f cos I delta xi. Thinking of the question, look at what is our f cos I. Yes, cos I equals xi. F cos I, what? Yes, f means x squared, variable square. So this part means cos I squared. How about delta xi? Delta xi, yes, the interval distance means 1 over n. So we have f cos I means the variable square. So cos I squared times delta xi, taking in the given values. Xi means corresponding I over n. Delta xi 1 over n. Taking the numbers we can get, okay? Summation 1 from 2, I from 1 to n, bracket 1 over n squared times 1 over n. Pay attention to, in the summation formula, n is fixed. What is changeable? I. Pay attention to I. So I changeable. Go on, compute this expression, taking the concrete number n cube. Summation what? Summation I. Why? I is changeable. So now summation I squared. So we only need to compute summation I squared. According to the basic knowledge, we know the summation I squared. Do you remember the basic formula in your high school? Y over n cube summation I squared equals n times bracket n plus 1 times bracket double n plus 1 over 6. So now we have get the integral summation. How to do? Try to get the limit. So now we can get 1 over 6 is a constant taking out. So in the first term means 1 over 6. Now look at the term n cube, n, delete 1 power. N plus 1 over n equals 1 plus 1 over n. This term, double n plus 1 over n equals 2 plus 1 over n. So now the integral sum is a function of n. If lambda tends to 0, do you remember lambda? Yes, lambda is the maximum value of the interval distance. So lambda tends to 0. This means n tends to positive infinity. So let's give you idea how to compute the limit. So the last step, the area of the region means equals the value of definite integral from 0 to 1, s squared dx. This equals, do you remember the last step? Step 4 equals the limit summation. Lambda tends to 0. Now look at the summation. Yes, the summation is a function of n. So taking the expression of n, lambda tends to 0 means n tends to positive infinity. Why you write it n? Because in this expression, the variable is n, so we need to write the n how to change. So n tends to positive infinity. So how to compute? Yes, equals 1 by 3. Why? Yeah, 1 over 6 times 1 plus 0 times 2 plus 0. So 2 over 6 together equals 1 over 3. It is our final value, means it is our area of the region. From the question, we can find the area equals licked price. It is a real number, means concrete number. The interval from 0 to 1 is approximate to licked price. Why? Do you remember? This is integral sum. The sum means some expression of n. N is changeable, so not equal means it close to not equal. So equals this expression. N, how to change? N tend to positive infinity. Why? Because if n takes different values, at this time, the area means definite integral has different approximation accuracies. N is enough large. At this time, we can get the limit is our definite integral, means it's our area. Try to understand the idea. So now we look at example 2. Try to evaluate the definite integral by using a regular partition. Do you know partition? Yes, partition means our step 1, segmentation. So now look at the idea. We're taking in example 1, delta x equals 1 over n. In this question, delta x equals 5 over n. Why? Can you tell me? Why it's 5? Yes, you should pay attention to the upper limit and the lower limit values. Upper limit equals 3. Lower limit equals -1. How about the distance of the interval? 3 minus -2 means 3 plus 2 equals 5. So at this time, the given closed interval is divided by n intervals. Every interval distance is 5 over n. Taking xi, the given point, equals xi as our sample point, means some fixed point in the closed interval. Try to understand 5 over n and xi. Now look at the figure, okay? Y equals x plus 3. How to find the corresponding area? Taking the following point. Taking the original point, x0 equals lower limit, means -2. The xn equals our upper limit, means 3. How to write it? x1 equals beginning point plus the interval distance. xn equals the left end point plus 5 over n times 2. And go on. How to do? Blah, blah, blah. xi equals the left end point minus 2 plus 5 over n times I. We can taking the different points. Using the idea, pay attention to xi corresponding values. So now, we have xi. Do you remember? Fx equals x plus 3. So, fxi equals fxi, fxi plus 3 together. Xi, do you remember? -2 plus I times 5 over n minus 2 plus 3 equals +1. So, equals 1 plus I times 5 over n. Try to understand fxi means the values of fxi. It is our height. Do the sum, integral sum. The sum equals fxi times delta xi. What is our fxi? Yes, fxi. What is our delta xi? Do you remember? Yes, 5 over n, taking corresponding values. fxi equals this number, okay? Delta xy. try to do the summation. Have the similar idea in example 1. Pay attention to the sum. What is changeable? Pay attention to I. Yes, I is changeable. How about n? From 1 to n, this means n is fixed. So I is changeable. So now we do the summation. Equals 5 plus 25 over 2 plus 25 over double n. This is our sum, integral sum. Finally, the sum is a function of n, not I. Why? Because I will have compute. So, corresponding definite integral means our area, okay, equals the limit of integral sum. Taking in corresponding if lambda tends to 0 equals what? Equivalent to n times 2 positive infinity. Pay attention to this formula. In this formula, if n tends to positive infinity, at this time constant is still constant equals itself. N tends to positive infinity, this term equals 0. So the final result, the limit equals 5 plus 25 over 2 together equals 35 over 2. It's our final result, means the definite integral value. Try to understand the idea how to take in the integral sum, how to compute the limit. According to the two examples, we try to get some summary of the definite integral. Look at property 1. If a equals b, you can think the figure in your mind. If a equals b, at this time a equals b, this means 0. Why? If a equals b, at that time the corresponding figure, the region, become one segment. The area of segment equals 0. So from 1 to 1, 3 to 3, 4 to 4 equals 0. Why? At this time, the geometrical meaning means the area of the segment, so equals 0. Now look at, if a larger than b, this means a from a to b, fx dx equals corresponding ba minus. How to understand? Try to understand the formula using the limit property. From a to b, from b to a, they are corresponding. If u equals 9, I will equals minus 9. Change the order of our limit and the lower limit. Change the order. So ab become ba minus. Try to remember. If a function has definite integral, what means has definite integral? This means the limit exists. And then, if we don't consider the values of a and b, we don't care the values. Maybe a is larger than b. Maybe a is less than b. Maybe a equals b. We don't care which one is bigger. And then we will have the following properties, 5 properties. So now look at property 1. If ab integral function fx plus or minus gx equals what? Yes, equals corresponding the summation or minus of the two definite integrals. How to prove? You can prove by yourself using the limit idea. Now look at property 2. ab, the integral function is k times fx. K is a constant. K is constant means k is taken out from the definite integral equals k times the definite integral, where k is a constant number. The property 1 and the property 2 together means the linear characteristics. Try to understand. in the future computation, we always use the linear property. So now look at property 3. If C between A and B means C is a number between A and B, how to write it? Yes, the definite integral AB fx dx equals from A to B. How to write the C? Any C, yes, C from AC plus CB. This property means interval additivity. C is the number of between A and B. We can prove in the future C is any real number, for the formula is always true. This means interval additivity. Now look at property 4. If the integral function is a special function equals 1, you can think it. Your mind at this time, the curve trapezoid becomes a regular rectangular. Yes, at this time equals base. The base means B minus A. How about the height? Yes, the height is constant, always equals 1. So the final value is B minus A times 1. So equals B minus A. Now we study the last property 5. Property 5 means if fx is non-negative. Negative means less than 0. Non-negative means larger than or equals 0. At this time, AB fx dx. It is our definite integral, still non-negative. Still non-negative. This means sign preserving property. Try to understand the 5 properties. So now we will using the 5 properties and the definition of definite integral try to answer the questions. Look at the question 1. Question 1 means try to find the limit. The limit, pay attention to this. N tends to positive infinity. Limit. The first term 1 over n plus 1. The second term 1 over n plus 2. Plus blah blah blah. Plus the last term 1 over n plus n. Maybe you can write it like this. N tends to positive infinity. So the first limit equals 0. Okay? The second equals 0. Blah blah together. The last equals 0. 0, 0 plus 0. Infinity 0 together equals 0. Some students write it. If in your test you write this, it's wrong. Why? Do you remember if the limit of summation equals the summation of the limit, the given condition? What? Yes, the number of expression means the number of limit is finite. Now we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, n. How many? N. N tends to positive infinity. So using the limit property is wrong. Now how to do? We have the following idea. We can write the limit in this expression. Pay attention to n plus 1, n plus 2, until n plus n. Thinking yourself. The integral summation. Yes, f cos I times delta xi. So we can write it delta xi. Write it 1 over n. How to write it 1 over n? Means doesn't change, okay? Equivalent to taking n from every term. The first term taking n out become 1 plus 1 over n. The second term taking n out, n taking out become 1. This term become 2 over n until the last term. Yet how to write it? F cos I means fxi. What is our I? How to find it? We can write it. Copy limit n tend to positive infinity. Summation 1 plus 1 over n, 1 plus 2 over n, blah blah blah. try to find the regulation, try to find the rule. The rule means 1 plus I, yes, I here. 1, 2, 3, 4 until n. So this is our regulation. 1 over n times 1 over n. Yes, so now we find it. The cosine. Cosine means 1 over n. So we can write it. The limit summation becomes the definite science. How about f cosine? F cosine means our fx. 1 over 1 plus cosine. This means 1 over 1 plus x. 1 over n means our interval distance. We can write it the integral variable. So write it dx. So pay attention to limit summation corresponding the definite science. F cosine corresponding our integral function. 1 over n doesn't change. 1 over n is our interval distance. We can write the corresponding x is our interval variable. So write it this form. We have known corresponding the definite integral antiderivative function is ln bracket 1 plus x. So equals ln 1 plus 1 minus ln 1 plus 0. So final result equals ln 2 minus 0 equals ln 2. It's our final limit. Try to understand the question. Means using the idea of definite integral, try to find our limit. Now look at question 2. Question 2 means try to find the limit. Limit n tends to positive infinity, the first term. Look at the characteristic. Try to find the rule. Square root 4n squared minus 1, the second term. 4n squared minus 4, blah, blah, blah. The last term, 4n squared minus a squared. Compare the question 1. How to find it? Yes, taking out the interval distance 1 over n and then find I. What is changeable? 4n squared, 4n squared, 4n squared doesn't change. Changeable here. 1, 4. Next, yes, 9. You are clever. Next, 6 until n squared. 1, 4, 9, 16 means I squared. So we have the idea. We can write it in this step. Try to find what? Yes, interval distance. So taking out this term, 1 over n. 1 over n is our interval distance. How to write it? Write it. How many terms? 1, 2, 3, 4, n. So there are n terms. In similar idea, if you write it 0 plus 0 plus 0, it's wrong. Using the idea of definite integral means the limit idea. So we can write it taking n out. Square root means taking n squared out. Square root n squared means 1 over n. Square and square root together become n. So now look at first term. For n squared minus 1, taking out n squared, the first become 4. The second become 1 over n bracket square. Similar meaning, the second term become 2 over n bracket square until the last term. You can find it. Yeah, this is our interval distance. How about the cosine? 1 over n, 2 over n, n over n. Yes, 1, 2, 3 until n. So the 1 over n, 2 over n, this term is changeable. Changeable means our cosine. So we can write it, yes. 4 minus 1 over n bracket square. Pay attention to I. At this time, we find it cosine. Cosine means 4 minus cosine square. Cosine means our xi. So the summation corresponding function, we can find it. Interval corresponding function become 1 over square root 4 minus x squared. So now, how to write it? The lower limit and the upper limit. Do you remember? Yes, 1 over n. It is our interval distance. In the first interval, the left-hand point means 0 over n. The left point, okay, 0 over n. Another point, 1 over n until, okay? So I minus 1 over n. I over n. Continue. We can find that 1 over n is our the interval distance. So how to write it? Look at the lower limit. 0 over n is 0. So it is our a equals 0. How about the upper limit? You can think it yourself. Yes, n over n means 1. So it is our upper limit. So from 0 to 1, we can finish this. Together, write it this, okay? Limit summation means definite integral from 0 to 1. Corresponding the summation function, we could write it, the integral function. So we do this equals pi over 6. It is the final limit equals pi over 6. So the definition of a definite integral gives some idea. Try to find the limit. The class is over. Try to understand. See you next time.